Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and you're very welcome to this month's ADA VI user group session. This month, we're talking to James Flanagan. James is the Disability and Inclusion Fan Network Coordinator for Football Supporters Europe, and he works to improve accessibility for people with disabilities. He's a strong advocate for audio description commentary, and that's what we're here to talk to him about today. So, James, thank you very much for coming. You are very welcome on this, what is a sweltering day at the moment in Dublin, and it seems to be around Europe. But I hope wherever you're listening to this, you're able to keep cool. James, tell us a bit about yourself and how you are today for a start, and we'll get into some big questions then.
Thanks for having me, Óran. It's lovely to connect, and hi to those that are listening. Yeah, my name is James Flanagan. I'm based in Galway in Ireland, and it is pretty sunny here as well. So I'm delighted with the weather.
What motivated you, first of all, to become involved in the disability network?
To be perfectly honest, I'm mad about sports since I was a kid. The only career path I wanted to do was to work in sports. I remember my career guidance teacher in secondary school telling me there's no jobs in sports and you shouldn't go down that route. But I persisted, and I did a course in college, and I adapted physical activity at the time, which was around how to adapt sports for people with disabilities. Through there, I got full-time work and employment, working in a local day service for adults who are visually impaired in Dublin.
Mhm.
And kind of my career path kind of went in a different way then when I was working there, because I was a member of a local football team, a League of Ireland team in Dublin. I'm a supporter of Bohemian Football Club, and noticed that nobody in the centre really ever attended live football matches. I kind of asked them why, or are they ever interested? It's really accessible in terms of it's cheap, you know what I mean, and it's a good evening out. And I really wanted to showcase kind of trying to get to games, but what we found was that there was no audio description commentary available in stadiums anywhere in Ireland for any sport. So I took it on myself to start it. I went to my club and I said I have an idea to start audio description commentary at the club. I work for the NCBI at the time, and we'd like to try and do this right. And from there, they just said to me, if you can do it, you're more than welcome to do it. So that's what we did. I spoke to lots of service users at the time, people we work with. I spoke to lots of people who were originally impaired and got feedback. A lot of people had never had any experience listening in Ireland, had any experience of listening to audio description commentary at all. Touched base with a lot of audio description commentators in Europe, and they give us invaluable feedback. And what we really wanted to do was to make sure when we were starting this out was that it was coming from the lived experience of the person, the end user, the person who is receiving the commentary. And that has kind of always been the most important thing I felt throughout my career path, is to make sure that whatever you're doing, it's for the person who's at the end of it, that their lived experience is felt. It got a lot of traction, and it was a success at the time. It happened in 2019, and from there, the club asked me to do a lot more in terms of accessibility for people with fans with disabilities at the club, and eventually, then I ended up getting offered a full-time role at Bohemian Football Club as their head of community, and delivered on lots of different aspects in terms of not just accessibility on match days. And after a couple of years, then I decided to go back to college, come back to Galway, and do another degree on accessibility issues in football or in sporting stadiums in Ireland. And following that thesis that I did quite well in, I got told about a new role that's starting at Football Supporters Europe, a brand new role to be the Disability Inclusion Fan Network Coordinator and build out a network of fans with disabilities. And I was lucky enough to get the job. To give you a little context on what Football Supporters Europe are, we're a members-run non-profit fan organisation. We have members in 53 out of the 55 UEFA nations. We are the main stakeholder for fan-related matters with organisations such as UEFA, the Council of Europe, the EU. My job is to work with fans with disabilities. And for a long time, Football Supporters Europe would have had members who were disabled supporters organisations or fans with disabilities, but it was never an area of work where we could all gather together and really push it. And yeah, I've taken on the role now here just over a year, and we've built the network out to have over 8,000 members from across 30 different UEFA nations in the space of a year, showing there's a clear mandate for this work. And basically what we do is we lobby to try and improve accessibility and regulation standards. We try and get fans' voices heard at a European level. We try and mobilise and upskill fans with disabilities to have representative groups and speak and connect. I think we try and also raise awareness with people who do not have a disability and how to be an ally, because I think that's really important. Most importantly, we just advocate for fans with disabilities, and including that is fans who are visually impaired, who we have a large membership of people who are visually impaired involved in our organisation.
And are there pretty common accessibility issues across Europe, or have you found it different in each country that you've been involved with?
It's societal barriers that come first and foremost, and how a country is inclusive or not inclusive towards people with disabilities. It's the same, unfortunately, in football. And while we see big, fantastic new stadiums being built where, you know, the infrastructure allows for better accessibility for fans, the large majority of countries in Europe don't have the finances to be able to build those stadiums straight away. And, you know, what we try and do is to create a dialogue with fans in these countries so that they have a communication channel to their clubs, their leagues, or their FAs to be able to say, you know, we recognize that right now there may not be finances, but if you listen to our feedback and our lived experience, it might not always be the most expensive thing to improve our match days. We just want to access these games. We want to have, you know, public transport that's accessible. We want to have an access to recognition that companions may be free of charge. We may have recognition that a certain section of the stadium may be made more accessible. It always comes down to one major thing, I think, and that's that lack of dialogue or communication structure that's not there right now. That's what we try and improve. And, you know, when we speak to clubs and FAs, and there is a willingness there to improve that dialogue, and I think it's about awareness and education, and just allowing for there to be a point of contact for fans to connect with and to improve their experience.
And you say there's a willingness. Have you come across football associations or clubs or whatever just really want to tick a box, but actually don't really want to do much because of the cost? Has that been an issue?
I think that's always going to be the case until it's enforced in regulations. I'm sure people here that are listeners are aware of what's the difference between recommendations and regulations and policy and in rulings. And unfortunately, for accessibility requirements, there's very few in the rulings, both at a European level and a national level, where the rulings are in regulations. They're more recommendations as of now. A club or an FA can always have an out based on that. However, you know, we can't keep repeating the same things that are going over and over again in terms of shouting from the rooftops for immediate change. We have to work through dialogue in a different way. I think in general, football fans have been seen as, you know, troublemakers by society, you know, not probably the most well behaved, or seen as, you know, not, you know, lots of different you know, perceptions can be made of football fans. But I think what we try and do here at Football Supporters Europe is show that we're able to articulate ourselves. We're able to have dialogue, and we're able to push for the rights of all football fans in general. You know, we work very, very closely with European partners, and if we were so misbehaved and you know, in other words, you know, perceived badly, we wouldn't be
Yeah.
in positions, you know. So
Yeah.
I think it's really important to get that out there, that like we are able to communicate and to work together and find accommodations as best placed. We have to have a sense of reality that what we would love to have is, you know, fantastic stadiums and fully accessible societies. We're not there right now.
Mm.
And I don't think, you know, the whole world in terms of that is not there right now, and it's ever changing. So instead of just being at the outside shouting, I think we need to be involved in the conversations and get improvements bit by bit.
From supporters, and now, what's the most common kind of feedback you're getting about audio description in stadiums?
There's some common trends in terms of this, is that audio description in general, there's no governance around it. It's kind of ad hoc in terms of who is educating and training, mostly volunteers in delivering audio description commentary first and foremost. There's a self-reliance on volunteers, and sometimes those volunteers are unable to attend games and your service may not be available, and we find that can happen. We can find that online services are becoming more and more common. The lag of the connection can cause an issue, and also in terms of the stadium feedback, the atmosphere, the crowd noises, that can cause some issues also if the commentators aren't in the stadium delivering the commentary. What we do see is that it is obviously, you know, it is a necessity for fans to avail of this. It should be in all stadiums, and if a person wishes to avail of it, they should have this. It's not common across Europe. There is no current regulations to have this in place, unfortunately, across Europe. What we do see is we work across European club competitions quite a lot, and unfortunately, at the minute, for fans, away fans traveling, there's an issue. Firstly, about away fans who may not get an accessible ticket in their away section, but also in terms of away fans who are visually impaired, blind or visually impaired, they may not have audio description available in their language. It might just be in the home language if it is available, and that leads to fans not being able really to immerse themselves fully in the game, or they feel like they can't attend. Nationally, right now in Ireland, there's a lot more clubs doing it. It's nice to see,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, you know, it is welcome. I want to make sure that the end user is happy with that, and I think what's most important is that fans have a place to give feedback back to the audio description commentators or the service themselves. There's no commission or watchdog on this right now, anywhere, and I think it's important for fans to have a place where they can provide feedback directly to the service users, to that they can improve. You know.
Yeah, because one thing I'm thinking of in my area, like training would be very important in making sure that you have, if it's a volunteer or even a professional audio describing in a stadium, there needs to be consistency in terms of what the service that's being provided to those supporters who are attending. That needs to be pretty consistent across Europe, no matter, you know, whether you're watching a game in Ireland or France or Germany. Or would you agree with that?
I think so, but I also think, and this is just from our experience of what we did at Bowes, was that we created a training program that had direct feedback and input from people who are visually impaired and blind, and they came to us and said, you know, we want a little bit of biasy. We want you to get excited in your voice. We're fans. We want to feel that and hear that as the, you know, the chance is coming or the goal is coming. And what I've learned over time is that maybe in bigger games like international games or the Euros or a Champions League final, your commentators are neutral, and the excitement is maybe not as much there, right? So what we did at Bose was create a training program, and we train volunteers and some sports students based in the university in Dublin, and the same kind of training program is delivered year on year. But what we do is to have a little bit of biasy, to be a fan, because we know that at Bose, our end user is our fans, and they want to have excitement. Okay,
Yeah.
we don't hide that, and that is probably something that's a little bit different to your bigger competitions, but it's something that we felt is important. And I'd love to get feedback from others if they feel that they've they don't prefer that, or if you're an away team, I'm sure away fan in a section and you're listening to this commentary, you might not like that there's a little bit of biasy, but biasy is part of being a football fan. An audio description commentator live in a stadium providing the service to the majority home fans most of the time, they should be a little bit, biased to be a fan as well. I actually have done commentary with the Shamrock Rovers audio description commentators, and they won and we didn't, and it was tough, to be able to do that. But it was during COVID, and we did it online, and we were broadcasting online nationally during COVID, and we did try and keep it as neutral as possible. I would say that we know at Bose that that's Bose delivering training to volunteers who are Bose fans, who are delivering the audio description commentary to Bose. If there's an organization externally delivering audio description commentary training to different clubs, I don't think that happens. But because it's in-house, there is a certain level of control you can have towards it to make sure that fans get a little bit, excited a part of it, and it's tribalism. And like you said, I think that shouldn't not be there in some certain contexts where your audience is mostly in agreement, with that and wanting to be part of it more. We had a user who started from the very, very start, and he lost his sight as he got older, and he used to go to games at Bose, but he drifted away and hadn't gone back since he lost his sight. He has, since it started, he's been at nearly every single game. He became a member of the football club. His family are now members of the football club, and the most important thing to him is bringing his family to the games on a Friday night.
Wow.
He would have his headset in the bar and go in for a sneaky pint before the end of full-time, half-time, and he could tell the bar if there's a chance happening or not, because he'll keep the headset on. But that's now his thing because of this. And should he not have a little bit of tribalism? I think so. That's just my view. But I completely get when you get a little bit, you get to a wider sense, you have a 50-50 or a neutral fans taking it in.
Yeah.
There has to be an element of neutrality towards it and professionalism towards it, absolutely. And that's just how it's done in-house.
I'm going to call upon two gentlemen, Mr. Jan Bloom and Gordon Anthony, and only because I know them very well. Jan is a co-host of our podcast, Blind Guys Chat, and Gordon Anthony has also hosted on our podcast, but he's also a Scottish man who's currently enthralled with the World Cup, and both of you have managed to listen to ADC in your local clubs, and I just want to know what your views are about the ADC that you're hearing in your own clubs.
I'll go first.
Yeah, go ahead, Gordon.
But I can only speak really from my own club. I would just like to affirm that, as far as I'm concerned, I do not mind the commentators being biased at all. I have been to some away games as well, and you understand that the people doing the commentary are volunteers. They are fans of the club you are visiting, and they're bound to be a bit biased. Although in my experience, most of the commentators have been, they will acknowledge if the other team does something well. They will say, oh, grudgingly, oh, well, that was well done. So I don't mind the bias at all. It is part of the atmosphere. I'm very lucky in that my club has two very good commentators, and the club give them a pass so they can get into the games for free. And as one of them is a diehard fan himself, that's pretty good. But the club have set aside a row at the back of the stand where the visually impaired fans sit, and the commentators sit with us.
Right.
So you can give them feedback throughout the game. It's quite easy to shout along the row, or if you're sitting next to them, you can pass on the information, which was quite invaluable because I think a former commentator retired or whatever, and a new lad came in, and he was a big fan of the club, but he'd never done commentary before. He'd just been asked, and he said, "Yeah, I'll give it a go," and we had to kind of teach him, as it were. If there's a throw in, tell us where it is. Where did the ball go out? If there's a free kick, how far out is it? What angle is it at? Things like that that we like to know, that because he could see it wasn't that important to him. But he very quickly got the hang of it, and he's now a top-rate commentator. Really enjoy going to listen to the commentaries at our club. And I've been to one or two other clubs as well, and some of them are very good, others okay, but as you said, it's volunteers that are doing it, and I don't think they get much training on it. But I have also been to Scotland games at Hampden Park, and it's quite a professional outlook there. They tend to have a team of 2 or 3 commentators who take turns, do a 20-minute stint each, and some of them are extremely good, and it is quite a professional setup, even though, again, they are volunteers. They've been doing it for a while, and they know how to do it properly. I really enjoy the commentary. We're very lucky in Scotland that most of the top league teams provide commentary, and most of the clubs also have a disability liaison officer. So if I want to go to a game, I can get in touch with our disability officer and say, I want to go to such and such a game. Can I get a ticket? And can you arrange with them? Where do I pick up the audio kit? And they'll do all the arrangements for me. So I just need to find my way there, usually with a sighted guide, get to the place, get the earpiece, and then find my seat. So it works pretty well. It works pretty well.
And just to ask you both, like James and Gordon, it's fantastic to hear that for most of the games that you go to, you can get an audio described commentary. Was that hard, James? Would you have been across that at all, or Gordon, do you know how hard it was to kind of advocate for the headsets and the receivers and transmitters to be made available in those stadiums?
No, I don't know, and I think there are 2 clubs in Dundee where I go to my football, and there's a local charity, and I think the charity plus some lottery money provided the kit. I don't think the clubs put their hands in their pockets for it at all. That may change now if they need to update the kit. I suspect they might be a bit more amenable to putting their hands in their pockets for that. But it was a local society that kind of got in touch with the volunteers and paid for the kit to come along. I think the big problem is knowing about it. I mean, I was losing my eyesight, and I was using a symbol cane. I was going to the games one season and really struggling to follow the games. I said to my wife, I don't think I'll renew my season ticket next year. It's a waste of time. I can't keep my eye on the ball's moving too fast. I can't keep up with it because I have very limited vision. And I happened to be, there's one miserable midwinter day, I happened to be standing indoors in the stand where the concession stands are, and I had my symbol cane out just to warn people, I might bump into you. And a guy came up to me and he said, excuse me, did you know we do audio commentary here? And I said, no. And he said, well, come along and try it. So he was one of the commentators. He'd just been going for his pre-match pie and pint, or pie anyway. And so he went along, I got the earpiece, and I've been there ever since.
James, is that something you find around the clubs around Europe, that promotion is an issue?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. It's it can work in 2 ways. The bigger clubs in Europe will outsource it, and be able to provide the service. And they're quite good at promoting it. The problem then comes of the feedback element. What Gordon said there, being able to give direct feedback during the match is fantastic, and it's great to be able to have that in big stadiums across Europe. You don't know who they are, but what and the complete polar opposite of that then is it could be fan led. So the fan campaigns to the club and says, I want to have audio description commentary. Sometimes the clubs can turn around and say we can't afford it without really investing in it. And that's kind of where our job is, to come in and support the fan and give them the information and really push for them to connect with other people who may be visually impaired, who may avail of the service, or local charities who would come together and build your audience that way naturally. You know what I mean? So that's part of our work of mobilizing fans, that we say is that we can really support them to have that and come to the club with kind of viable answers fairly quick when they say they can't afford it, because it's relatively inexpensive in the grand scheme of things. You know what I mean? For return on investment that they will get from fans being able to access games, the return on investments through publicizing what they're doing, in terms of socially, which a lot of clubs seem to do as well. So, it's we like to counter that argument fairly quick in terms of them saying they just can't afford it.
Okay.
Óran,
Jan, when it comes to you,
because
what's your experience?
We have a different approach here in our stadium. I'm supporting the club ADO Den Haag here in my hometown. And there we have
that's in the Netherlands, just for those of you who
sorry,
want to know.
In the Netherlands. Sorry, the hooligans from Den Haag, you never know. The orange, the orange people, But we have an app that is with the name Gazetti, Gazetti, and that is an app what you need to log on to when you're in the stadium, but also you can do it when you're out of stadium. So that's easy. Then also when you have not the option to physically be there, you log on to the streaming, and then we have most of the time two people in the stadium who are really then also volunteers to do the audio description, the audio documentary. And that is really nice, because you can really have feedback instantly. We have the how do you say that? The guiding of our section. That's Eric. He is then in touch with the two commentators to have you a good reception or receiving of the signal, etc. But it is really a simple way. I learned from Gordon that you have really a physical receiver and an earpiece, and that is sometimes what you see in the theater here as well in the Netherlands. But in the main football stadiums, you have this system with using an app on your phone, and then you can log on, and that's quite useful. So you don't need to be a member of it, so you can. That's also easy then also for the when you're playing a away game, then you can really also when the service is available in that stadium, then you can also simply log on to that service.
Yeah, so that's a way of potentially reducing the cost.
Yeah,
very good. And what about the actual commentary itself, Jan?
It is the same like the same like Gordon described. The first time, when it is very important to have it instantly. That was a little bit critical in the beginning when we started to had that the service came in our stadium with Gazetti, is that because you want to hear instantly when there is a free kick or a movement happening at the pitch, that you want to hear it also on your earphone. And that is quite awesome, because that is when you hear the referee on the pitch, I hear it also in my ears, and that is really great. And then the absolute fantastic describing of what's happening. Also they describe what the fans are writing on all their or all those how do you say that, advertisements, you know,
Mm.
when they're also described, and it is really you are part of the stadium, and of course you feel everything, but also to have a really description of what's happening on the field. Sometimes we are sometimes also a little bit moaning, because blind people do that all the time. That is a little bit that you need to know where it happens, you know, because in the enthusiasm of the audio describers, they simply describe what's happening on the field, you know, but then it's more a radio commentary. But the absolute a plus of the audio description is that they also describe where they are, you know, in the position of the pitch. Is it close to the angle or not, whatever, to the midfield or whatever. So that is very important, and that is very useful as well.
Yeah, I just want to ask you, James, what are the main differences between ADC and, let's say, radio commentary?
I think it's what Jan just said there. It's mapping the ball constantly. You're constantly mapping the ball as commentators. It doesn't matter where you are in the pitch, you have to say where the ball is. The ball moves quickly. You know, for a radio commentator, they might go off on little tangents or tell you stats or little things like that. But you know, for ADC, it's vital that you're talking about the where the ball is. You're mapping the ball nonstop, and before you start the game, it's vitally important that you present the mapping of the pitch. You know, if you describe it in thirds or whichever way a commentator does, you set the tone immediately for the way you're going to describe it. What's your near side? What's your far side? Left of centre, right of centre. Describing it in thirds, and you're really cutting the whole football pitch into little sections.
We have also a specific position in the stadium, so they know where we are. So then they say, hey, it is in front of you, and etc. So it's the opposite of where you are sitting. So that's also very nice. So they include you also in the whole ADC play.
Yeah.
I want to bring in, sorry, Gordon, did you want to come in there?
So just a little thing on the radio commentary. I'm afraid it's one of my big bugbears. I'm using the radio a lot to listen to the World Cup just now.
Yeah.
And I'm always complaining to my son. I said that they're talking about what they had for tea last night, and
Yeah.
you know, and what the clouds look like in the distance. And he says, well, there's nothing happening on the pitch. But I want to know that there's nothing much happening on. You know, if the centre backs are passing, if they're passing back and forward, I want to know that. And I often wonder how much time they actually spend commentating and how much time they spend talking about nonsense. I mean, there was an instance recently during the World Cup. I can't remember which game it was. It was 3 minutes into the second half before he actually said what was happening on the pitch. He was talking about all sorts of other things, and I've had instances where, wasn't it a nice taxi driver we were speaking to today? There's a goal. Where did that come from? You know, that really annoys me about the radio. I know you do get extra information. You can get stats and you can get a little bit of history, but I'd much prefer to make up my own mind about what's happening on the pitch from the commentary.
Hi, this is Reg here.
Hiya, Reg.
Hi, yeah, I totally agree with what I think it was Gordon there that said about the radio commentary, you know, breaking off to tell you the horse racing or something like that. It's like, what?
Oh God, yeah.
I've come to listen to this match. And for my sins or not so much, Arsenal supporter. So this year has been quite good and quite healthy. But I've been, in terms of World Cup, I mean, I found someone recommended a FIFA audio description app. And that's been, if you want to know the difference between that and the radio commentary, that has been chalk and cheese for me.
Okay, now let's talk about this for a second, Reg, because I've heard the commentary as well. So let's move on to the World Cup. What's your view about this app and the service it's offering?
I mean, as a sort of fan listening, I think it fills that gap in, as Gordon said, where, you know, it tells you that there's nothing going on, or, you know, they're just taking a water break, or they're rolling around on the pitch, and the person, I mean, it is an American sort of, you know, I suppose sounding name, and they're using a couple of, you know, Americanisms for the soccer game, and that's fine, you know, and that's all part of the going to another country and listening to it. And I think they do they're trying really hard, I think, to fill in that gap. And during the halftime, there's a different commentator who tells you what's going on, what they're seeing in the stadium, as if you have the jumbotron, the sort of dancing with fans, all that sort of stuff, which I find, things that I wouldn't get, and the commentators, don't even talk about it, so on radio. So those are the sort of things they don't. I found it's probably a refreshing mix for me.
Well, how about so I'll tell you my main gripe, and I would agree with everything you've said, but my main gripe is that there is no background audio, or at least I haven't heard any background audio. That is to say, you can't really hear the ref's whistle or the ball being kicked around, or much crowd reaction, because sometimes to me it sounds like the commentator is actually potentially could be in their home. With the TV on and muted.
Like that. Yeah.
And are you discouraged by that?
I think it took me a while to get used to it. I think from having followed, like when you follow radio, they do pipe in or include the sound from the pitch, and I think that's probably I would like to see that as a sort of slider or something that you could introduce. As within the app, as something to whether you want that input or maybe they want a cleaner, sound. I don't know. It sounds like a production thing that they've decided consciously not to include it. And I wonder if the VI guys who do this for a living, is that something in production? The decision is made.
Well, James, would you know anything about that in terms of TV production? Is it for ADC on TV? Is it a conscious choice that broadcasters might decide to just have the commentator on their own or without the effects? Or it seems kind of odd to me.
Yeah, I can't tell you. I don't know the full true answer in relation to this, unfortunately. FIFA don't recognize fans as stakeholders of football, so they don't engage with us and we don't work with them on that.
Right.
Surprising.
Yeah, so we would obviously work lobbying UEFA and working with UEFA as we'd be seen as the stakeholder, but unfortunately with FIFA we don't. So what I can say is that, we've membership in a lot of countries participate in the World Cup. I do not know of any fan who is visually impaired who is attending the World Cup from our membership in our network that nobody's let us know. So I don't know what the fan feedback is related to being in the ground. What I would say is that they would be still using the same app inside the stadium. The only thing that the end user would have in the stadium is that they would have the crowd noise around them. They do this at UEFA competitions as well. See, on UEFA's app, they will have audio description available on the UEFA app for the final, and that would be in the language of the countries participating, and also language, the host country's language. So you would have seen it at the finals this year. You will also see it at all the Euros. Every game there will be ADC available. And what we will do is we will push to make sure that every host nation's language is represented in that for the Euros in 2028, if that makes sense. So every participating nation should have ADC in their language for the final. The ADC commentators would be in the stadiums for that, and they would have their mics, so you would hear the crowd regardless.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a difference there. Okay.
James, may I have a question? Sorry, Óran, but for the timing, what I described, in our stadium, it is instantly. When I hear the whistle from the referee on the pitch, I hear it also in my ears. But from the FIFA and UEFA, is there it is when I watch it together with my family in front of the television, there is always a delay. More or less, I am a little bit ahead of the game, and people are annoyed with me because then I'm already muffling a little bit or whatever, So there is an indication, and then. But would it be nice to have an option to set a delay or to whatever, that you are at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely. And like our feedback was that it was okay in the stadiums this year. For example, let's say for Arsenal and PSG, We had members who were blind who fed back that the ADC was quite good.
Yeah.
That there was no lag, there was no delay in the stadium. We can provide that feedback. If you're saying directly and saying to us, you could come to us and say, I listened on the UEFA app and there was a delay of 5 seconds or whatever, 3 to 5 seconds. Like, can you look at that? We can absolutely pass that information on. In relation to the FIFA one, I'm not sure we can we can look for feedback. Absolutely, from anybody that listens here and listens to feedback, and we can send that feedback directly to FIFA. Unfortunately, I don't know where that will go, but we would certainly try.
Because then you can watch together with your sighted people and then it is now a little bit the same. Also, I have the goal alert app on my phone, and that's also a little bit ahead of the television, and that's a spoiler. When Messi missed the penalty yesterday, I knew it already.
I'll throw in a bit of a curveball here, James. Just in terms of emerging technologies and that, do you see, or could you see where AI might benefit bringing ADC into stadiums maybe that don't already have the service?
I think we've a long way to go yet before that happens. We need to get our house in order and making sure we have commentators delivering the right words before and commentating the right way and making sure we have some sort of governance structure and commission in place European wide to make sure that it's wide and that there's regulations in place for this. Do I see AI? I don't know where it goes for it. What I do know is that there is additional technologies being introduced now to complement ADC, I would say, that use AI in relation to touch boards, in relation to vision headsets for people with low vision, and they are only multiplying in their use in stadiums now. But at the end, for most of them, they are being used as in stadium for the end user, for people.
Okay, so no little bot sitting beside Gordon at Dundee United, waiting to tell him what he's looking at. Just to focus a little bit on TV, I mean, do you think now we've moved up to the stage that really there should be regulation for maybe club games or certainly internationals or maybe the Premier League or something like that? That regulators like we have in Ireland, Commission Amon or Comreg in the UK and others around Europe, should they be kind of set targets for audio description in sports, audio description commentary in football, but also in other sports?
Absolutely, I 100% think so. Yeah, I think that should be. I think that there should be that in place. I think the feedback that we get is that it should be in place. We see some introductions of it in television. Unfortunately, the quality can vary, and a lot of the time what's happening is TV production companies are recruiting football commentators, standard football commentators, to deliver the service without providing them with any training and guidance on it, and they're kind of left to their own devices, or normally will reach out and ask for help and guidance and assistance. You can only give so much without providing a training program. So I think there's two things there. I think that there definitely should be the regulators should really push for having a minimum for at least national team games in your country. If you're the broadcaster, have national team games provided at a minimum. But I think that the broadcasters need support in having their commentators trained to a certain level to be able to deliver it. And we spoke about biasy, like that goes out the window when you're on a national broadcaster then. Does that make, so it's a little bit different in that sense, to a certain degree, unless Troy Parrott scores a last minute goal and the country goes bananas for, in the end, absolutely nothing. But we had that moment. Or Scott McTominay scoring a bicycle kick, or Kenny McLean scoring from the halfway line. Like, your commentators on standard commentators in television lost their minds. So
they went mental. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, we all did, to be fair.
that absolutely has to happen, you know. So yeah, so I think that's part of the training, like knowing the moment and letting it run free. But I think broadcasters need support in having a training program to be able to provide to commentators. And I think there's a talent pool in their countries that are delivering it every single week at their local clubs, and they need to be engaged with, and they need to be spoken to instead of their connections and their contacts for TV commentators, because it's very, very different. Radio commentaries we've spoken about is very, very different as well. And you've got volunteers at clubs who are excellent at what they do, and they would be more than happy to engage and give feedback or provide the service. But I think, as studies have shown, professionalizing the area of ADC is really important, and they should be paid for their work as well, you know, for that. I think that's really important to professionalize this, what they're doing, what's happening, because then you create a chance of sustainability.
So James, what's happening in the next few months and maybe a year out for the FSE and yourself? What's next?
We're building out. We're getting to as many countries as possible. We're working in lots of different areas. We've most recently joined the European Disability Forum as the first football organisation to be members of theirs. So we're talking European level, but planning ahead, supporting our fans for the new season. And if anyone does want to engage us, please check out Football Supporters Europe online. It costs nothing to become a member, and read about us, and we're there to support as many people as possible. So we'll keep building up, and we'll go get ready for a new season.
Well, the best of luck with you, and I want to say thank you again for joining us. This has been a fascinating conversation, and I think supporters have to become more involved and advocate for ADC in their own local clubs, as well as the Premier games and the internationals and such. So it's hopefully it won't be all up to you. Thank you very much for joining us. For those of you who are listening, thank you very much for listening in. And if you do want to become a member of the ADA, just go to the ADA website, .co.uk. And as James said, you can also look at Fan Supporters Europe website if you want to become a member there. Thanks again, James. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the summer and the lovely weather we're having at the moment. Hope it continues.
Cheers, Óran. Thanks very much.